Hello everyone, you are welcome to the JMA Connections this Thursday, the 30th day of the month of April 2026, and this is the last day of the month of April. Like I said before, the year is moving pretty fast, moving pretty fast. I want to extend a hearty regards to the people of Com. Com is in Boyo County of the southern Cameroons. Of course, the little piece you follow there at the opening is, come on, call it Njang, and that is, one very interesting piece there. And I just picked that little piece to reminisce how beautiful our culture is, so we start right from there. That said, I want to begin today by once more expressing heartfelt sympathy to the families of all those affected by the massacres of La République du Cameroun in Jakiri during that cultural festival. We know that act has been so seriously condemned, and we know that La République du Cameroun has actually been trying to play serious cover-up using their parachics in our midst. La République du Cameroun has been putting every effort to try and sell the wrong story to the rest of the world, that the civilians that they murdered in Jakiri during a cultural festival, during a popular fiesta, where they went and opened fire on people, they're killing up to 15, and then taking their, arms and past military paraphernalia they had ceased to have in their keeping and displayed on the people to claim that they were freedom fighters. I know they had even gone to some very vexing lengths to try and claim that one of the civilians who's clearly identified there was, a freedom fighter known as General Capo, of course, which has been verified to be totally false. So this act is absolutely condemnable. We'll continue to condemn it, and we'll continue to use every opportunity we have to urge the international community to open their eyes widely and see exactly what is happening in the southern Cameroons. What is happening in the southern Cameroons is really a genocide that is unfolding in slow motion. I said this and I want to reiterate. You see, even at this moment that I speak, all over the southern Cameroons, what is going on now is La République struggling to construct military camps in all our villages, in all the nooks and crannies of the southern Cameroons. The other day was the people of Batibo saying they were building a big camp, whether it's in Ambo or wherever. Today is in Bandesing village. I said they are struggling to build a big camp. The other day it was in which place in Menchum, they were struggling to build a big camp. The other day, whereas there are serious issues that the people are facing. If sometimes people think that artists, musicians just play music for the sake of it, some of the songs we listened to in the past we can begin to make a lot of meaning now. If you recall Lucky Duke, the reggae artist, when he sang, the policeman said to me, son, there will be no schools anymore. There will be no hospitals anymore. No more amenities, nothing again. All you have will be prison. That's exactly what we're seeing in the southern Cameroons. And yet, La République du Cameroun does not want anybody to say anywhere that we are a people under occupation, because this is what it is meant. Because that is actually what you call military occupation. That's what is going on in the southern Cameroons. And they want to disguise this by claiming that, oh, life is returning to normalcy, people are beginning to want to know. We should call it by its name. And if anyone is sitting in Yaoundé, calling themselves an elite and all of those things, calling themselves, leaders and all of that, and you sit down and you're very satisfied with the fact that a foreign country should build military camps everywhere on our territory. And that's the only way it guarantees you coming in, claiming to come see your people, then something is definitely wrong with you. Seriously wrong with you. Because you must see everything wrong with that. Why do people not usually like military garrisons or military camps or whatever created in their environment? Because these things come with massive abuses. These things come with unimaginable abuses. People are beaten and their wives raped in front of them. People's children are taken out of schools and raped. That's exactly what is going on in the southern Cameroons. That's exactly what is going on in all our localities. A lot of young girls of school going age are pregnant. We ask them who is responsible for that pregnancy. They can't begin by identifying to you any single person because they've had, a series of military men take turns on them. That's what is happening everywhere in the southern Cameroons. And we must call this by its name. If we don't see what it is, then we ourselves are being complacent. But this is exactly what is happening. And it's sad, it's horrible, it should be condemned. That is why I hail all the actors within the Southern Cameroon's liberation movement that are continuing to not relent in calling out these evil acts as they are and making sure our voices are continuing to be heard, are continually being heard everywhere in the world. We have to wake up from our slumber and understand that these things are happening like this. Today may be happening to some other person's child, some other person's family. Tomorrow it could be your own family. We cannot suddenly sit down and say, okay, no, La République du Cameroon is enforcing a serious manhunt for us everywhere, wherever we are. We have to just give up. These places where we are, sleeping free, enjoying free, getting jobs, going around and doing things, people fought and died for these places to be what they are today. And that's why all over the world, you see that for black people, they are reminding us all over the world that we're no longer welcome. You heard about what happened at the European Union Parliament when they came together and put in place more repressive regulations on how to send away people who are unwanted. And 90% of those people who are unwanted are us, the black people from Africa. We should call it by its name. And what did they say now? They will send you to third-party countries. For the European Union, they have identified the northern Arab countries, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, these countries where people who are struggling to move into the Western world through the desert are already facing serious dehumanization. But that's what they tell you, those are safe places for you and I. This is why we need to understand the need to fight to take back our countries, to fight to take back our countries from tyrants, to fight to make our countries the places to be. Because that is the only place we will truly call home. Look at what is happening in South Africa. The South Africans are after other Africans because they say they fought. They don't even recognize that a lot of us fought for them while we were still in primary school, not even knowing what apartheid was all about. But we knew there was something we needed to fight against for some people somewhere, and that place happened to be South Africa. But today they are telling us, go back home. We fought to fix our land. Go fight and fix your own. That's the sole message of those xenophobic things that you're seeing in South Africa. For how long shall we continue to be crying the victim when we have the possibility to do what it takes to take back our home, our homelands, to take back our destiny, and to secure a better future for our children and our children's children? This is what we should be thinking. What aches me is you see people who are over 65, over 70, some of them even about 80, who are still telling you that they are afraid to die. They are afraid to front because bad things will happen to them and all of those things. They want to stay. And what are you living for? Because truth be told, at that age, your future is no longer in front of you. Your future is behind you. This is the truth. So you start thinking, what am I going to leave behind? What is my legacy? That's what I'm telling all of those people who have abandoned this liberation movement in the hands of the younger ones. Rise up from your slumber. Don't just sit in your bedrooms, lie on your bed, watch or sit in front of television sets and complain. Oh, these children have become this. Oh, those people have become that. Your input could help move the needle forward, move this liberation movement forward. Do not forget, Don't ever forget that it was our forebears. They were older people like you and I. They were even in power. In Nigeria, in Enugu, representing us of the Southern Cameroons. They stood up like one man and told themselves, something needs to happen. We cannot continue to be treated in this manner. We have to restore our dignity. And they all moved en masse from the Nigerian House of Assembly in Enugu and came back to Biya, settled down, and founded the first government of the Southern Cameroons. What will be our own legacy? What are we going to leave behind? This is what we have to be asking ourselves. Some Gaputs are moving around, they're calling themselves parliamentarians. Way back in 2017, our people went door to door from those people and told them, if you all withdraw from the Parliament of the Republic du Cameroon, for even just one parliamentary session, these people will come to the negotiations table. We will have the opportunity to talk. But individualism, outright selfishness, and all of those will not let people to realize that we are all facing an existential crisis. This is something that people need to know. People need to be told, and told the hardest terms possible. So in that light, the consortium which I have released this press release today, absolutely calling this evil crimes for what they are. You know, when Pope Leo XIV came, they said, oh, the Pope is coming. The Pope's arrival was coming to preach peace. He will signal peace. He's coming. The Pope himself talked a lot about justice, peace, and all of those things, especially. But you see, the Pope had hardly turned his back. That all of these ugly things that are happening on our territory are happening. And that's why at the level of the consortium, we are calling on the international community to wake up from this long slumber and face the reality that the people of the Southern Cameroons are facing annihilation. That's why we are looking at this and we say these alleged war crimes are simply undermining the Papa Peace Appeal. Why did Cameroon need to spend 50 billion CFA funds for the Pope to come to Cameroon if he was just, it wasn't really going to represent anything serious to them? I won't take a lot of our time to go through the content of this media release. I just mirror it so it is there. It's on Facebook. It's everywhere. It's going to be definitely in the local newspapers. Look at it, share it as widely as you can, and let's continue to get to the world. We need to keep drumming, singing. Someday, someone, somewhere will, take heed. Just before we issued this, there was another one that was also issued by IGK in the same light. And IGK also paints a clear picture of exactly what is happening in the Southern Cameroons. They make clear to all those who are refusing to see that the people of the Southern Cameroons are facing an existential crisis. That is why IGK says the Jakiri tragedy underscores the urgent need for negotiated peace. That's an internationally mediated settlement between the Southern Cameroons and the La République du Cameroun. It's the same message as from that call from the consortium. It's the same message that other individuals have been passing around. This said, I will take us into the chaos that is happening on the other side in La République du Cameroun. And this is a clear message to those who continue not to see very clearly that we don't have any future with La République du Cameroun. That we will never matter. Like I've said, in their minds, what they need to offer to us are the camps, military garrisons everywhere. Not hospitals, not schools, not those farm to market roads that will help our people in the communities, alleviate poverty. No. That's what we are reduced to. While what do? They tap the resources from our land, force our people to sell our produce to their people at serious giveaway prices, just to make sure that they continue to keep us under total subjugation. And this is something that I say is completely unacceptable. Now let's look at how things happen on that side. The other day, I was talking with someone in Yaoundé who was telling me, oh, the thing is, they really feel like they should support this movement, but the fear is we might go our way and end up being a failed state because of the way things are going on in our liberation movement. They are worried that we can come out and be another South Sudan. I ask, why do you always like to look at the bad examples? Why don't you look at examples that worked? Timor-Leste came out of this too. They too faced chaos. They too faced division. They too had a lot of sellouts in their midst. But when they fight, when they ended up taking back their country, they have not acted like South Sudan. It's the same thing with Eritrea. Eritrea not ended up acting like South Sudan. And if you want to even think to a certain extent, South Sudan may even be getting slightly more developed than the Republic du Cameroun. So why would you always like to look at those negative things? And I tell them, look at the chaos over there in Yaoundé. Is that an example? Is that what can really define us? Is that what we really think should be, you know, the baseline, the blueprint for us thinking about, you know, taking back our country? Now look at this. The former Speaker of Cameroon's National Assembly was there for almost 40 years, but for well over 30 years. After putting all those years there as Speaker of the National Assembly, he was finally kicked out. And when he was kicked out, of course, as it is traditional, he believed that that position was his birthright because Biya himself has already installed a dynasty. So they wouldn't understand why their own positions too would not be subject to the same kind of dynastic treatment. And so when Cameroun Yege leaves, with his sons who surrounded him, he took his away equipment. So when I saw this document circulating, signed yesterday, the 29th of April, 2026, by the Director of Cabinet at the National Assembly, giving Cameroun Yege Jibrill's son and another close associate 48 hours to return vehicles that normally should belong to the National Assembly that they have confiscated to themselves. And you know, by the time I saw this thing, I reached out to someone and they told me the president of the National Assembly believes, the former president, Speaker of the National Assembly believes that he was so poorly treated, and because he was so poorly treated, it is his right to go with everything that was in his possession, including those cars. And so I understand that they are swearing that it is only Biya himself that will come away from Etudi to collect those cars from them. You look back at that document, it says mise en demeure, is mise en demeure de restitution des véhicules appartenant à l'Assemblée nationale. And it signed le directeur du cabinet à monsieur Haji Liman Barga Yege Ibrahim and Mana Zake Gabriel. All of this, you know, either Cameroun Yege Jibrill's children, one of them is clearly his son, and the others are his close associates. And they have with them very, very, you know, very expensive vehicle. Toyota Prado, Toyota Hilux, and all of those things. I mean, this is not how a country normally is run. Because in a country where there are regulations, in a country where things should follow, I mean, a certain should follow certain norms, this is not how things should normally obtain. This is not how things should obtain. So I was just talking about the cacophony that reigns in there. Why in some quarters you hear they tell you that no, the country had to do everything for the Pope to come because they expected the Pope had to come and bless Paul Biya's successor, the vice president that was supposed to be Frank. That is obviously Frank Biya, and they expected that the Pope was going to have a moment of communion with Frank Biya, bless, even baptize even grandchildren at the Unity Palace, and in effect have that photo up with Frank Biya that was going to be used to boost his credentials and all of those things. But those things did not happen. And some of the people in the regime, the Bulu Ekambetis, are not hiding their disdain. And I'd like you to note this. Like Republic of Cameroon have been reduced to a Bulu Ekambeti possession. Because they believe now it is their birthright to do whatever they want to do with the entire country. And that's why anything that goes contrary to what is supposed to, you know, masturbate the ego of the Bulu Ekambetis is unacceptable. That's why you have a lunatic like Bandakani come on here and tell you that the Pope visited Cameroon to be blessed. That the popes usually come to Cameroon to be blessed because the popes cannot bless Cameroon. Hear him for yourself.
Ce n'est pas le pape qui bénit le Cameroun, c'est le Cameroun qui bénit le pape. Le pape n'est pas en capacité de bénir le Cameroun, c'est le Cameroun qui le bénit.
Great declaration, Mr. President.
Non, mais je vous le dis.
Who can bless the Pope in Cameroon? You or the President?
C'est le Cameroun qui le bénit.
The whole country.
Mais tout à l'heure, je vous ai parlé de pourquoi le pape aime le Cameroun. Si cette émission a du sens, c'est pour dire ça.
It means that you are putting the Pope under the spiritual spirit of Cameroon.
Mais bien sûr. Je dis que le pape n'est pas en capacité de bénir le Cameroun. Je suis en train de vous le dire. Il ne peut pas bénir le Cameroun.
Mr. President, this declaration that you are saying can
c'est le Cameroun qui le bénit.
This declaration that you are saying can produce a shock on the 10 million of Catholics that are in Cameroon here, Mr. President.
Tu vas les choquer pourquoi? Ils ne sont pas Camerounais. Ça va choquer pourquoi?
So when you listen to this kind of a lunatic, and this is somebody who generally gets a lot of space on state media, on whatever media house, to say all these kinds of inanities. These are not the people with whom we have to belong. These are not the kind of people with whom we should associate. Just get this kind of mindset. You see this kind of baseness, you ask yourself, but wait a minute. On which planet are we? On which planet are we really? But you may think that you have heard anything serious. You haven't yet. Just wait until you listen to Jacques Famendongo here. Listen here to Jacques Famendongo.
L'avènement illustre la préscience démiurgique de notre président. Son génie cosmologique vient de forger une architectonique de la pérennité. L'instauration de cette vice-présidence est une fulgurance ontologique, une prophylaxie contre le vide institutionnel, naturellement. Les ectoplasmes de l'opposition s'embourbent dans une logorée stérile. Leur vacuité d'admirer les empêche. Cette majestueuse ingénierie étatique, c'est une catharsis qui pulvérise la dissidence. But in English, the message must be clear. The supreme architect of our nation has done it. This quantum amendment is the pinnacle of our logical evolution. The opposition is just hallucinating. We must improve the security of the state to avoid any vacuum. The newest presidency is a providential safety net. It is the guarantee of our stability. Thank you.
I'm sure you're wondering, what language was Jacques Famendongo talking there in? The part in English, is it really English or? I laughed my lungs out because even what he was saying in French, you see, just playing with words, using those hard words, those strong words and everything. But one thing came out of this buffoonery that you just watched. One clear thing came out that should not leave anybody in doubt. Jacques Famendongo is saying here that the creation of the position of the vice president of the Republic of Cameroon is a clear indication of the perennity, that it signals the perennity of Paul Biya's dynasty. Jacques Famendongo has never beaten about the bush, making clear that as far as they are concerned, Cameroon has already been transformed into a Beti dynasty. And in that Beti dynasty, the ruling family is the Biya family. So right now, Cameroon is no longer a republic, it is a kingdom. And in that kingdom, the Betis are in charge. And within the Bulu Ekam Beti clan, there is one family on whom they are hanging their hopes. And that's why he says that all the noise that the opposition is making, they're barely hallucinating, because the creation of this position of vice president is simply going to, ensure the perennity of the Biya system. So this tells you in clean, For the Beti people, this matter is settled. And that is why now the fight for succession in La République du Cameroun has now been reduced, has now been shifted to the Biya family. And that's why you hear me tell you that Cameroon's last standing institution, because the only institution that has been functioning in La République du Cameroun right up to this moment was the institution of the presidency of the Republic. And now that institution of the presidency of the Republic is witnessing its own share of chaos, serious chaos right now, because the fight for the succession of Biya's stool, because now Cameroon is Biya's family property, and Biya is now the king, and the constitution, they say they have modified the constitution, creating the post of vice president, although he illegally should not be able to appoint any person as vice president within the ongoing mandate. But Biya says he is above the law. He is even the law. So all the talks that the Pope came and was talking about the rule of law or the state of law and all of those things were just gibberish. And so therefore, the fight has been shifted now to two people, as you can see on this picture. These are the people who are now, in a deadly battle to outdo each other for the presidential stool, for that post of vice president, which will ultimately directly give him to becoming the next president of the République du Cameroun for at least the next 50 years. And this is exactly what I'm trying to draw the attention of the people of the Southern Cameroons to. That all the developmental drought that we have witnessed right up to this moment, all the pain we have witnessed right up to this moment, all the dehumanization that we have been victims of right up to this moment, is just, they are telling us from Yaoundé that if you stay with us, know that this is just Genesis. By the time we get to Malachi, you understand exactly what is happening to you. So the fight now is between Georges Gilbert Baounla, that you find here, and Frank Biya. And that is why the fight now has moved even from just fighting behind the scenes right to the various offices of the forces of law and order. As you definitely are already aware, Georges Gilbert Baounla says he is the first son of the president of the Republic, Paul Biya. Frank Biya says he is the only son, of course, because he doesn't consider Paul Biya Jr. as a son, since that one I understand is what the people commonly call around that area an Efulefu. So he is not even considered. So Frank Biya considered that it is his birthright, not Georges Gilbert Baounla. Georges Gilbert Baounla says, because we are talking here about succession, he is the first son, and therefore by right, it is him who has to succeed Paul Biya. You recall, in my last outing, I pointed out that Paul Biya was in the process of actually materializing Frank Biya as, his vice presidential appointee. We don't have nomination, because he nominate to get sent elsewhere, but he decides at the final instance. When Chantal Biya stormed in and said, this will not happen, it will be over her dead body. And then, immediately, Frank Emmanuel Biya believes that somewhere that there appears to be some kind of undercurrents between Chantal Biya and Georges Gilbert Baounla. And he tells himself that if Chantal is opposing his appointment as vice president, it therefore means she's favoring Georges Gilbert Baounla. And if she's favoring Georges Gilbert Baounla, it means that she and Georges Gilbert Baounla have some kind of entente if he takes over as president and not him. And so that is how Frank Biya now gets out of his reserve and decides to sue, to drop a complaint against Georges Gilbert Baounla, claiming that he has gone into that, he has defamed the family, he has usurped, in short, all kinds of things. And that is how we find ourselves with this document that is in circulation, because they have been struggling to serve Georges Gilbert Baounla to get him to show up to the Secretary of State in charge of the gendarmerie, which is attached to the Ministry of Defense. And so when they sent out that summons, Georges Gilbert Baounla had signaled that he was going to go out of the country for whether medical treatment or whatsoever and all of those. And so because he said it insistently, 2 days ago, therefore, the security services issued this document saying that they were, forbidding Georges Gilbert Baonda from leaving the national territory. This document literally says that Georges Gilbert Baonda est interdit de sortir du territoire national. And they say, Baonda Georges Gilbert, if anybody sees him attempting to leave the national territory, they should capture him and take him to any gendarmerie office of choice. But unfortunately for them, by the time this document came out, apparently Georges Gilbert Baonda had already left the country and is allegedly somewhere in the United States of America, from whence he has been, rebutting all of this. And Georges Gilbert Baonda is now asking that Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon, and Frank Biya, whom Georges Gilbert Baonda is insisting is not Paul Biya's son, that they should all go for a DNA test. This is getting interesting, right? It's getting very spicy. He says they need to get DNA testing to ascertain who is their son, because that is what is going to determine the succession question. They are talking here about succeeding at the helm of a country that claims to be a republic and that claims to be democratic, where elections normally should take place for someone to be, chosen to run the country. And some people, some drunkards sit in one corner, pardon me that expression, and say that we should continue to tie ourselves to a failed state like this one. If you are a Southern Cameroonian, and all of these developments I'm talking about, they don't really hurt you, they don't make you ask yourself questions, something is wrong with you. Ask yourself, where are we headed? Where are we headed? Our only hope, our best hope, lies in making sure we take back our country. This is what is most important for us right now. Because as I'm speaking, Frank Biya expected that already being exposed to the French president, Emmanuel Macron, like as you can see from this photo up, he expected that the boulevard was wide open for him, and he was just waiting for the appropriate time to step in. He did not foresee this kind of ferocious fight from Georges Gilbert Baonda. And now, for the little history, for all who may be wondering, but what is happening right here? There's some very intriguing thing everyone needs to know. Listen, Paul Biya, in his first marriage to his late wife Jeanne-Irene Biya, did not have a child. Frank Emmanuel Biya is said to be the son of Jeanne-Irene Biya's niece. And there is a school of thought. There's some old people, Betty people, whom I spoke to. That was somewhere around 2014, 2015 in Yaoundé, when I was carrying out some other investigations as a journalist to know certain things. Some patriarch in Fu, right all the way in Fu, told me this, that although there have been claims that Frank Emmanuel Biya is a biological son of Paul Biya, that he is not. He said, although there have been claims that Paul Biya laid with his wife's niece and begot Frank Biya, he said the truth is instead that that niece was living with Paul Biya and his wife Jeanne-Irene. She got pregnant of someone the family did not like, and it was such a scandal. It was going to be such a scandal, and Jeanne-Irene and Biya were so much fond of this niece, and so they decided for Paul Biya to take responsibility for that pregnancy, take the child, name the child after himself, because Jeanne-Irene herself had not given birth. So in effect, yes, Frank Emmanuel Biya is a son of Jeanne-Irene Biya's niece, but according to this patriarch, had no relationship biologically with Paul Biya. And that is what Georges Gilbert Baonda is aware of this, and says therefore he is the only, between him and Frank, he's the only biological son of Paul Biya capable of succeeding Paul Biya at the helm of the Republic of Cameroon. And To counterflank, that's why Georges Gilbert Baumla is asking for a DNA test to prove paternity. So this is where it becomes really interesting, and this is where it becomes absolutely chaotic. This is what it is. So where you are seeing right now, you are in the middle of a dynastic fight, of a family battle that may end up being even bloody. Right now, it's already deadly. Because you see, they have moved from the palace where Biya himself is senile and may not be able to blast the final whistle anymore, doesn't have the capacity to do that anymore. That's why it has moved from the presidential palace now into into legal channels. And so this is an unfolding story. This is drama in the making, and we should all stop by and be watching. But while we are watching, it is a defining moment for the people of the Southern Cameroon to finally sit down and say, but wait a minute, we have to be very careful. We have to settle down and rethink, especially for those who have still not joined the independence train. Time is running out on you. Come to the fold very fast before it becomes late for you to do so. I want to end here and thank all of those who are part of this broadcast. If this is your first time on this platform, please go right ahead, hit that subscribe button, share the link, make sure you personalize, drop a comment, be constructive in your comment, no insults. And of course, do not forget to hit that like button. It generally goes a long way. So thank you very much for your very kind attention. I'll be back here tomorrow. So we'll continue to look into these mysteries that are surrounding us right now.